Hello, my name is Cadman Kiker, and I am of counsel at the law office of Will M. Helixon. Where did I grow up? I grew up in a small town in Georgia called Clarksville. Had about 400 people in city limits. Kind of a charmed small town life. Leave the house at 8 years old, sunrise, and come back at sunset. Just kind of living in the wilds of the woods, playing in rivers, things like that. What influenced me growing up? My father was an attorney, but a country lawyer. We got paid in all sorts of ways. I remember getting chickens or eggs or vegetables from a garden, getting free meals at a restaurant because he'd done legal work for someone who owned it in town. Seeing that my whole life, it instilled in me an urge to help people make sure that one mistake, one issue that faces them in their life did not come to define the rest of their life. What shaped my early views on justice? I come from a military family. My father was an Army officer, still serves in the National Guard. My grandfather was in the Navy in Korea, and I had several great uncles who fought in World War II. From a very young age, I was taught that justice itself rests upon the shoulders of two types of people in the United States, one being lawyers and the other being service members. The lawyers are responsible for making sure that the Constitution is followed and that the laws of the land are what govern our people. Soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines are charged with the physical defense of our country. Justice was so important to me that I decided I wanted to merge the two and be both. I attended law school at Washington and Lee University in Lexington, Virginia. I knew I needed to get out of my small town and see a little bit more of the world, but I've always been in love with the mountains and the outdoors, so I decided to pick a place that geographically spoke to me, but was far enough removed for me to get outside of my comfort zone. And I knew that I always wanted to serve my country, and that's originally what I went to law school for. So as soon as I was accepted into the U.S. Army JAG Corps, I left for training. For the first few months of my Army career, I was a legal assistance attorney, bringing soldiers in at the individual level and helping them with lower-level military issues or civilian issues. I learned a lot in that job, everything from state law to protecting soldiers under the Service Member Civil Relief Act. And I was soon moved to the Administrative and Civil Law Department at 3 Corps in Fort Hood. There, I worked on internal investigations at the 3-star level. I worked on processing General Officer's Memorandum of Reprimand and a whole variety of issues from land use and easements down to advising individual commanders on what they could and could not do ethically within the Army. After that, I was assigned as the Chief of National Security Law for 3 Corps in Fort Hood as an installation, which generally speaking is not a very duty-heavy title. However, about a week after I was put into the role, Hurricane Harvey hit the coast of Texas, and I quickly became the go-to guy for domestic operations across the state as Fort Hood did what it could to support the people of Texas. After that, I deployed to Operation Inherent Resolve for 9 months, first in Kuwait and then in Iraq. My primary duty at that time was I was the targeting attorney for Inherent Resolve. We were in a very kinetic operation. We were doing land clearance of ISIS strongholds through some parts of Iraq, but mostly Syria. I was responsible for advising the general officers personally on deliberate targeting to create target lists, as well as weaponeering in order to effectuate strikes. In addition to that, I spent a lot of time in the JOC myself with the target engagement authorities, determining whether legally they could or could not hit specific targets in real time. I also worked with psychological operations and civil affairs and the whole gambit of special operations in determining what we could and could not do with the authorities that were available to us at the time. Upon my return to then Fort Hood, I was assigned as the 3rd Cavalry Regiment Trial Counsel, which in 2018 was the busiest court-martial jurisdiction in the United States Army. We effectuated hundreds of Article 15 separations and 24+ courts-martial per year when I was in that role. And then in 2020, I was assigned as a brigade judge advocate at Fort Bragg at the 528th Sustainment Brigade, the logistics brigade that is responsible for special operations logistics worldwide. I was responsible for the full gambit of legal operations at the brigade. I supervised soldiers directly, supervised NCOs directly, and I was responsible for everything from justice within the brigade to administrative investigations, ethics, logistics, rules of engagement worldwide for 2 years. After that, I did an intra-post PCS on, at the time, Fort Liberty, over to the John F. Kennedy Special Warfare Center and School, where I was assigned as the Chief of Justice and later as the Deputy Staff Judge Advocate. In both roles, I again covered the full gambit of legal disciplines within the Army, directly advising multiple general officers as they came and went through the command, as well as many brigade, battalion, and company grade officers who were in command roles and needed legal guidance. We worked on everything from roles of engagement to special operations specific issues. I learned a lot about some issues that are sidelined into the special operations community that many judge advocates don't have an opportunity to work on, such as I was personally responsible for all of the tab revocations for Special Forces tabs that came through the United States Army during those 3 years. Why did I retire from the United States Army? I had planned to fulfill 20 plus years in the Army and to continue to go as long as they would have me. Unfortunately, in February of 2021, I suffered a severe airborne operation accident, which left me physically unable to continue to serve. As a result, in 2025, I was medically retired from the United States Army. Why did I join the law office of Will M. Helixon? I joined this law office because of the mission. I joined this law office because when I talked to Will, it wasn't about making money. It wasn't about ginning up business. It was about justice. It was about making sure that service members, the people who fight for us, receive the best legal work of any in the world. It was about making sure that we hold the government to account, that they do their job, prove their burden every single time they take action against a soldier, sailor, or Marine. My goals as a warrior advocate are to provide world-class legal services. I want to be able to bring the experience that I have that is non-tangible. Experience being in the room when these things are decided. Experience of hundreds of times directly advising general officers and brigade commanders, watching the way their mind works, watching the way that they're thinking, what's important to them. Those are things that someone without that experience in the service just cannot bring to the table, no matter how smart of a lawyer they are, no matter their educational pedigree. They're intangible skills that you can only learn from being in the room. Balancing empathy and justice is frankly one of the hardest challenges of being a good justice advocate. On the one hand, you have the human side of every story. Every story, whether it's involving a victim or not, involves people's careers, their livelihoods, their freedom at times. Ultimately, our forefathers created a system that allows us to balance that empathy and justice in real time. That system is embodied in our Constitution, and we call it due process. And regardless of which side you're fighting on, as a lawyer and as an advocate, your ultimate goal should always be to make sure that justice is done by way of the Constitution, that people's rights are preserved no matter what they've done, no matter what they have allegedly done, to ensure that our country continues to stand upon the principles which founded it. What I want to accomplish at this law office is to make sure that when any commander, any panel, or any judge is making a decision about a soldier, sailor, or Marine's fate, they are fully informed, rights have been preserved, and they're making that decision only based upon clear, convincing and good evidence, and anything else is thrown out the window. You defend the nation, we defend you.